As the push for a global society has increased, some countries are also seeing an increase in a nationalistic mindset. Globalization has had an enormous negative socioeconomic effect in developed countries, driving these sentiments to an all-time high. While the same can be seen in less developed countries that are feeling the effects of westernization. Nationalism can be described as the policy or doctrine of asserting the interests of one's own nation viewed as separate from the interests of other nations or the common interests of all nations. As we move forward into a more global society, where technology, transportation, and communications have brought us closer together now more than ever before, certain aspects of globalization have rekindled waves of nationalism throughout many countries, some developed and others on the brink of becoming industrialized nations. There are changes happening around the world, caused by socioeconomic developments that directly drive some cultures into feeling threatened due to the encroachment of a westernized mindset. Developed countries are feeling the economic changes due to lost manufacturing as industries move to other countries that offer lower labor costs. This brings out feelings of national pride and, to a certain extent, racism and prejudice against other countries and ethnic groups. From the standpoint of the developing countries, though economic growth is a positive change, it leaves many people in those same countries feeling that new industries controlled by foreign corporations will influence and change their society and cultural integrity. These aspects affect us all from the standpoint of economics, sociology, and anthropology, or more precisely, our culture. Globalization has increased the feelings of nationalism and protectionism, and it may create a major divide between industrialized and underdeveloped countries. Human societies were developed around family and small groups directly related to each other. Territorial disputes have fueled wars since the beginning of mankind. An example of this is the ongoing struggle of the Palestinian people in trying to become an independent nation without Israeli control. This struggle began right after Israel chose Palestine as the location for their newly founded country, and it does not show signs that it will ever end. Even today, disputes between neighbors occur every single day. Our primitive instincts are what drive our thoughts in nationalism, protectionism, and separatism, which may always stay with us. Professor Lechner, a professor of sociology at Emory College, describes globalization as a compression of the world as well as an intensification of consciousness of the whole world. He also describes how globalization received a boost around the 17th century due to European expansionism. He then proceeds to describe the shaping of main reference points of what he calls fully globalized order, which are individual self, the nation state, world system of societies, and finally humanity. Professor Lechner expands on the compression statement with the thought that in a compressed world, the comparison of different views and religious traditions can lead to cultural conflict. This conflict can therefore become a source or justification for extreme views and a resurgence, in his opinion, of fundamental groups. He also states that a globalized world is integrated but not necessarily harmonious and prone to fragmentation. Countries across Europe are seeing an increase in right-wing votes. Workers in industrialized nations are seeing globalization as a threat to their jobs and their ability to provide for their families. This is probably the main driver of an increased feeling of protectionism, which is defining in economics as the practice of fostering or developing domestic industries by protecting them from foreign competition through duties or quotas imposed on importations. These importations don't necessarily need to be a product. They can also be foreign workers. Sweden, a very open-minded country in general, has seen an increase of 13% in right-wing votes. The same can be seen occurring in France, Germany, and the UK. The sentiment is similar in many other areas, even in the United States. Anti-immigrant sentiment has increased. Politicians argue the need for tighter control of our borders, though at the same time, these same politicians have a vested interest in the export of jobs to other countries, since they are shareholders in the corporations that are creating new jobs in underdeveloped countries. Fundamentalism today is used to describe groups of people, primarily Muslims, that stick to their moral and religious beliefs, which is also on the rise in less developed countries, specifically in areas such as the Middle East and Asia. Less developed countries and traditional Muslim countries are seeing Western culture as an intrusion on their beliefs and way of life.